Plan for today is to go ahead and take the starter off of the tractor, get it where I can call my John Deere dealer and get a part ordered to get in here to put it back on. I'm going to go ahead and choose to remove the solenoid and the starter and just replace both instead of trying to replace one at a time. If I were to replace the solenoid and the starter, an older starter, new solenoid, that may over time cause problems between the two, and I might find myself having to repair my starter solenoid combination again in a short period of time. So today we're just going to take both the solenoid and the starter off and prepare to put a new one on. Get in here for a real good close-up of the starter. You can see the cable coming off the battery, maybe the alternator coming in, going into this lead here. We'll have to remove those. We'll have to remove the ignition switch connection. Best place to see it is up under there. That is this connection that's got the spider webbing over it, the little post in there that comes out and connects to this cable that runs up into the ignition. And then also have to take off a couple of nuts that are a little hard to see back in the back there. There's one just out of focus, out of view there, and then the next one I think you can see underneath the cable, underneath the wire. There we go, popping into position over there. So I have to take those two off. See if I can get some better lighting here. There we go. See, there's a nut down there that we're gonna have to remove. And then one. Let me see, there we go. That was a good shot. One right there. And I've already loosened them. So I know that that's the two that I have to contend with. So we'll remove that and then be able to, let's see if we can see this post down here a little bit better. Maybe a little post there for the ignition switch. It's kind of hard to see it, but anyway, there's a little small nut that we have to remove to get the ignition switch off and get the whole starter off. So let's get that underway. To remove the starter, those two sort of somewhat hidden nuts, I'm going to use this extension. It's a 3/8 extension, and they happen to be, in this instance, a 15 millimeter nut. So that's sort of the process I'm going to use. There's no way I could reach those with anything that didn't have an extension on it. The starter's off now, and a little bit of an anatomy lesson here. This is the solenoid at the top here. This is the starter down on the bottom, and what we were seeing before was this upper threaded post where the battery and or alternator attached, and then this side post here is where the ignition switch attaches, and then down at the bottom this threaded post here runs out to the starter. And on the inside of the solenoid we have a something similar to a magnet. When electricity contacts this upper post, it should send this magnet-like component spinning and flying this direction, and when it hits the end of the solenoid up here, it makes a connection between this post and this post. And so in order to make use of that, once that connection is made, the ignition switch has to be turned, allowing the connection between the two posts to be made complete, allowing electricity to run into the starter. The starter is a motor that turns this crank, and then this crank starts a turnover of the tractor's engine. This is the spot where the starter used to be, and you can see there the hole where the starter motor connected to the engine, or to the motor of the tractor. And you can see the wheel with the teeth in it. That's where those gear teeth on the back end of the starter made contact to help turn over the engine once you crank it. And so for whatever reason, that starter is not working anymore, was not able to turn that crank and get me started when I needed it to. Today I've got a little bit of an unboxing to do. It's not really an unboxing because I'd already opened the box at the John Deere dealer, but I am getting my new solenoid and starter today. I decided I would go with a new John Deere product, something that I knew had been checked out and would work when I got it. I considered taking the old one and having it refurbished or fixed, or fooling around with it some myself to try to get it to work, but in the end it's sort of a good sized tractor, and I didn't want to do anything that would make my job harder later on, having to take something off and put something back on and end up buying this part anyway. So just went with the John Deere product, and now all we have to do is plug it in and see if little John will crank. Also in the box came some software, some stickers, and then some of the small equipment that you use to attach the different wiring. So we'll be using that to attach the starter here in just a second. It's getting a little dark, and it took me a little bit longer to get finished than I had hoped it would, but the new starter's in place, and I'm going to tuck a couple of wires back a little bit more neatly, and then I'm going to jump in the cab and see if I can crank it up. Well, with that first turn, cold start, crank, I guess there's no doubt that the starter solenoid combination was the right way to go. And now I'll be able to get back to doing some work around the farm.